Hello, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to talk about the train and how to hold the Ivy spot in particular, because in my opinion Ivy is by far the most influential and powerful spot you can hold as a CT. Just because you on one hand hold down a very important flank, which needs to be covered at all times, otherwise the T's have this huge wraparound to the B side. And at the same time, you have this very great line of sight into the A side, into A main, between the trains, so you can really intercept and dissect a rush from a actually very safe distance, just because there are very few people who, when they come out of main, directly focus onto Ivy. When you run out of main, your focus 90% of the time is either on that train stop, connector, front train, or top guard. The Ivy guy is a very low priority target, even though that is a huge mistake, just because he can have so much impact. Because as you can see from Ivy here, I have this great line of sight to peek with the AWP into this angle where they have to jump out if they want to get onto site, and I can easily peek here into hell where they're forced to go along if they don't want to immediately take a fight with the guys on site. So let's just start with how to hold it. I'll begin with showing you how to hold it with an AWP, just because this is the, let's say, the preferred way of holding Ivy. If you're Ivy, you want to have an AWP in your hands. Otherwise, you won't be as effective as it could be. But as we're gonna see later, Ivy is a spot which can be held very easily and very well with an M4 or an AUG. But we'll just begin on how to hold it with an AWP. First of all, you always want to, in the beginning of round, throw this smoke and then do this peek if you have an AWP. Just because, like 99% of the times, you'll be faster. You'll be faster than the T-AWPer. You're just gonna try to peek this angle. Either is bad and just does this. This is very easy to counteract because you're already here. You just walk in the shot, you fire, that's fine. But you also have some people trying this peek. This is a bit more difficult, but if you have nice reactions, you can still easily manage to break up, or you just assume that the enemy you're facing is going to try this, and you're just going to pre-aim slightly higher. Then, as I said, you should throw that smoke, and after you peek here, and you either killed somebody or you haven't seen anybody for, like, let's say 5 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, that's instant time frame where they can rush. Just take out an nade, or this one, in case they decide to peek here with a dumb timing or they're hiding. You just want to kind of scare them away of pushing out of their main. And then you have to be very, very aware of the fact that even though your smoke was here, the enemies can already sit here, here, or very cheeky spot. It could also be, oh for fuck's sake. And they can also be boosted up here. So, to not get caught off guard, you have to immediately either peek like this and then clear, or if your smoke is still there, this is something that I really like to do, after I got my initial peek here, I'm gonna do this. I just simply pre-fire to your own smoke. You'll be surprised how many people stand like this in front of that smoke and just get banged the fuck through that smoke. It's just insane how many kills you can get through this single smoke. By just doing this very simple pre-fire. You should also try to aim a bit higher when you're pre-firing on the left side, just because there's this trash bin where you can stand up and peek from a spot that's a bit elevated. This is something that a lot of T-opers like to do. Just slowly check all the angles here, and to counteract that, you basically either have to pre-fire them, or what you can do is can just throw a simple standing flash, pop flash yourself into that angle. After, let's say, the first 10 to 15 seconds of a round, if nobody did try rush, you should really try to fall back, because the longer you stay in this position, the higher is the chance that you're just gonna get shot at from the sides and die due to an unlucky timing. Because, as you can see, you're exposed to a lot of angles. If somebody manages to slip through main and sneaks up to, let's say, this point, they can easily peek you from a green train and completely catch you off guard. If your teammate at bomb train is looking main, they can easily go out of pop dog and just pre-fire you. And of course, you always have to be aware of the fact that they can try to push the spot that you're actually supposed to hold, IV. So, apart from the beginning of the round, where you can take a fairly easy peek and try to shut down rush with some nice smoke bangs, you really should try to minimize the time you spend in this location of the map. Just fall back to this spot. This is very, very nice. If your teammates have the A site and you're in control of the A site, because you can just sit back and hold this angle. This is a very, very nice angle for the AWP to hold, because you can easily fall back into this headshot angle, or even further into this headshot angle, which allows you to rotate to the B side, or you can completely disappear behind this train, maybe repeat, pre-fire, or just rotate onto side. So, if your team has control of the A side, always try to fall back to this angle and just hold Ivy so they can't get fucked from the sides. If your team loses control of the A side and you have a spot, then you have to think. Then you have to assess the situation, how likely it is that your team is going to retake, and whether you have to save. If you have to save, obviously just go CT and try to save. But if there's a legitimate chance of you retaking the site, you then have to think about how many enemies are on the A site in this moment, because this is very detrimental to the decision you have to make whether or not you want to hold that angle. Because if you only, let's say, have 2 teammates on the A site, both of these teammates just like electric and train, or some amazing connector and somebody's side, they just get banged by 2 people rushing in, and you only know that there are 2 people on A site, then you basically have to assume that the rest of the enemy team is either at Ivy or in Pop Dog. If you're at Pop Dog, there's really nothing you can do, but if you're at Ivy, you definitely have to hold this angle. So if you don't really know that there aren't at least, let's say, 4 enemies on the A site, then I would recommend you keep holding that angle, just in case the enemies try to capitalize off those entries on A by just rushing from Ivy and trying to flank the last guys trying to rotate in from connector. Because if they try that, they're just gonna run straight into your AWP. You have one free frag, maybe you get the info, you try to get another one, and then you can play around this train and get some info, and maybe attack the enemies while they try to plant. And retake together with your teammates coming from connector. Because if you do that, then you have a much higher chance of actually pulling off a successful retake. So, as I said, your usual procedure during a normal round should be just walking out of spawn like this, with a smoke in hand, smoking Ivy, so they can immediately rush you, taking the peek, falling back, maybe nading. If the teammates are there, it's smoked off, trying to hit some, oh yeah, maybe not shoot 10 bullets in the first 10 seconds. Hit some pre-fires the moment the smoke's fading, just post up at this angle, and then wait. Wait how the round plays out, and if there is no need to hold this angle anymore, just move back, try to hold this angle. If your teammate calls where they're pushing out a pop, just try to pre-fire here. But if there aren't many enemy locations known and you still lose control of the A side, try to hold this angle and hope for the best that they just run into a shot. And then either try to go for the retake with the teammates at the connector, or just go and save. This is how you should hold this with an AWP. If you try to play with an AUG, you have a lot more freedom in when it comes to how you actually want to play this position, because you can actually do the same thing you're doing with an AWP. Just smoking here, taking this peek. This is also a very favorable peek with an AUG. Doesn't really matter if you have an AWP or an AUG. You can always try to take this peek, maybe nade into here. And just refire. Move back to here. This is very much valid. You can just play like this. Or, what I really like to do, especially in the beginning of the round, is to take this peek and then go up the trains like this. First peek here, and really pressure main into either overcommitting to a fight and then dying, or to retreat. Because if you're not really expecting a fast B rush, which a fast Ivy rush, which you most of the time will notice when you're here taking your peek, then there should be no real danger in going up this train, because you're fairly concealed from Pop Dog. As I said, you're immediately going to hear if they're gonna rush Ivy, and you still have a fairly favorable angle onto Ivy. And especially if the enemies in main are slightly distracted by your teammates on site, these peaks from the tops of the trains are a really annoying thing to deal with if you're a T in main, because it's always a very weird angle. You have to look up, you only see like the side of your enemy, his arm or his elbow, and you can't really see his head, and it's just really an annoying thing to play against. And if something is annoying and really tilts the fuck out of a guy facing it, it's a tactic you should employ as often as possible, because tilt is like the best thing you can inflict onto your enemy. Even better than damage, even better than killing them. If you manage to completely tilt your enemy off the face of the earth, that is something which will be much more useful than just eliminating them in a single round. Because tilt stays. Tilt is something very permanent. And there's a third way you can play Ivy with a rifle, which is also very nice. You can, again, for a smoke, go for the peek. That is something you should always do, no matter if you have an AUG, M4, Scout, whatever the fuck. Just throw a smoke, take this peek, and either you pressure main and try to push them back or take the fight, or you fall back and try to passively hold here in case your teammates at A are a bit incompetent and you need to survive, or you expect them to always have this two-man setup here in Ivy, trying to slowly push forward. Because if you expect that, there's a fairly easy way to just completely dismantle this. Throw a smoke, a bit deeper than you would normally do. So if this box is exposed, and just go up here and just wait. Because a lot of people, when they go around here, especially when there's a smoke, they'll just wait till the smoke's fading, and then they'll get up to this box and try to take this pick, and then they'll swing around like this because they're afraid of somebody standing here or here. And even though those two are very, very valid corners to sit in, because even if the enemy is expecting you, you still have a fairly favorable fight. This box is just the absolute king of free frags, because in like 90% of the time, if the enemy is not super aware of his surroundings, or you're way too slow when he, I don't know, sees your gun barrel when you have an M4A1S, when you swing around like this, then you're always going to get that frag, because they're always just doing this, and they come around like this, and then you can just shoot, and then you should immediately turn on and pre-fire the right side, because if somebody dies here, the chances that he has a teammate covering the right side are very, very high. So, as I said, if you have an AWP, always do a standard procedure: smoke, peek, fall back. If an AUG, you can do the same, or you can smoke, peek, get up on the train and challenge main. Maybe just throw a cheeky nade in there, try to catch somebody walking up to that Olaf area here, or push up to this box and just try to stay silent. This is also, by the way, a very nice strat when you're running an eco round. And the last thing you can do, which works especially well if you're low on money and you, I don't know, just have a, let's say, that's nice, a CZ. You can just grab like one or two teammates, and if you have a favorable spawn, so if you're like here, you can just take out your knife, go as fast as possible, and then just do this flash, not to press the chat button, and pre-fire everybody see here. This Ivy rush is something which can be easily dismantled by a wary T with an AK, who turns away from that flash, so be careful, but if you think that your enemies don't expect that and aren't really mentally on that level to always push Ivy with their backs turned, then it's definitely worth a try, because if the enemy team tries to have like two people Ivy, which is fairly standard, and just come out here swinging with a flash and two guys with pistols, it's very, very common that you can just grab 2 free frags of rifles and go back to your Ivy position, which, as I said earlier, is a very great position to hold the site from. Now, this actually should be it. This is, in my opinion, the definitive way of how to play Ivy, at least in a solo queue environment. If you found what I said at least a bit useful, then I'm happy. I hope that you can employ what I said in your daily games, and I hope that I've helped to improve at least a tiny bit. Oh, and a nice little trick I wanted to show you with, I don't know, doesn't matter really, any gun. If you're at this train stop, just walk up to this left corner. Oh no, sorry. Walk up to the right corner and look at this window, this wooden pallet blocking the window on the right side, and just bang through there. I know this is fairly known, but a lot of people still don't really know the exact lineup or position you have to stand in. So just go up to this upper right corner on the train stop and aim, let's say, inside the bottom half of this wooden plank covering the window, and you just be pre-firing on headshot height into this stairs area in front of dropper and in front of B holes. And it's surprising how many frags you can get just by occasionally banging through there with your rifle. Because even though B holes is such a distant spot, this is just wood, and the percentage of damage that actually passes through wood is insane. So even with fairly weak weapons, you can still inflict a lot of damage with this wallbang. So just keep that in mind. Even when you're playing Ivy, maybe feeling a bit cheeky, just come out here, pre-fire a little, and then go back. But otherwise, just try to stay calm, even if they rush you. And I'll hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.